week in Germany. Banned. 4 tweets I made. Banned. That is not correct. We are not allowed. You're not allowed to have this opinion.
You have to go to the prison.
Yes, and now von der Leyen is telling people, we will now pre-bunk misinformation from... What misinformation? Hunter's laptop? Fucking true. The vaccine didn't work? Fucking true.
The corruption with Pfizer and Ursula,
the Russian economy is collapsing. Bullshit. The Russian army is fighting with shovels. Yeah, and then they fucking launched the Oreshnik, the most powerful weapon on the planet right now.
They have fuel for 3 days more.
So you could write a fucking laundry list of this shit, right? So that's not disinformation, it's information. What they're trying to do is fear. They're trying to get everyone to bend their knees, follow the fucking leader, do as you're told, the blue and red flag, the fourth fucking Reich, bro.
Hello, world, from Belgrade, from Serbia. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mario Zna podcast based in Serbia, where you can hear everything that you cannot hear in mainstream or legacy media. I'm not going to take much of your time, and I'm not going to take much of time of my today's guest. He's an Irish journalist based in Moscow. He's much more than that, and you know him already. So let's open this episode with Šej Bous. Šej, welcome.
Great to be here, Mario.
Thank you for being my guest here in Bunker. First question, I'm not going to do the kind of podcast like how's the food in Serbia and how's the women and stuff, we're going to do the things that two of us are like dealing with. It's foreign policy, inner policies of countries, like the collapse of European Union and the West. But I have to ask you because you're in Serbia here. You spent few days here. You're going to spend a few days more. How would you define a country as Serbia? Serbia, to be exact. How would you define it?
Well, I mean, look, first thing is, it's been great being in Serbia. I mean, I've been in Belgrade. I haven't been outside, so I can't talk about that. But the people have been great. They're just great. I mean, it's been super. I've been here for 4 or 5 days, and I kind of, now as you saw, I can see the end of the trip coming up. I kind of think it would be great to stay a bit more and get out outside the town. So I've been interested in Serbia for years, because I'm living in Russia. And I've been fascinated by this relationship with the Russians and the Serbs, and I've got some Serbian friends in Moscow. Ireland and Serbia share certain really interesting similarities, small countries, we 6 million people basically in both the countries. And everything, for a long time, everything that the world knew about Ireland was told to them by people who hated Ireland. And right now, everyone in the West knows about Serbia is told to them by people who fucking hate Serbia, basically, right? So that's something that's it's like, come on, I've lived in Russia since the start of this phase of the war in Ukraine. Saying this phase because it really started probably in the aftermath of the Second World War. So having lived there and been coming and going into Europe into the propaganda, you really quickly learn you just can't believe anything you hear in the media about a country, and you got to get into the country, you got to get to know the people, you got to research the history. I think Serbia is a country that's sort of forged in adversity. It's had such a difficult time, the most recent being the attack from NATO. And it's been really interesting for me to be here to see how absolutely despised NATO is here. We've seen these fucking huge protests across, society here. And it was amazing. And I did a report for RT from the, from the ground, right? And we saw, like, everyone was against NATO. Everyone was against the EU. The EU building. I had a beer and I walked home and I seen these kids that were spraying on the fuck NATO on the building, right? And so for me, who I've been reading about and studying the situation with NATO and the EU and the European Union, being from Europe, seeing the negative impact that the EU is, what it's become from an economic bloc, which was a great idea. I think what we need to do in Europe is to go back to being an economic union. We need to abandon this political fucking empire building and just go back to being an economic union. Let people do their thing. And seeing what NATO is, how aggressively it is expanded, and how it's a business. It's a business. It's a weapons sales business. It's a fucking. It doesn't mean it. How can something like 30 members agree on fucking anything? Put 30 people from 30 different countries in the room. They can't agree on what to fucking order for dinner, what they're going to drink. You mean the Turks and the Swedes despised each other? You know, we got so much fraction and all this. The idea that it's ever going to actually wage a war with anyone is a fantasy. So now they're going to spend 800 billion of our money in Europe. We have no doctors, no nurses. They're all fucking gone to Australia. We're importing doctors and nurses in Ireland from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, from the Middle East, and from the poorest countries in the world. We're stripping out these really important people of their societies to come here to Ireland, and we're shipping ours off to the beach in fucking Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
You can't buy a house. You can't see a doctor. The streets are filthy. It's dangerous. We have a huge immigration problem. So all the meanwhile, we're meant to be worried about Russia. Like Russians don't even know where the fuck Ireland is on a map.
Yeah, Russians are to blame because of the situation in Ireland. Like,
but
crazy,
I mean, Ireland and Serbia, size-wise, very similar. People are very similar. They're kind of skeptical, but they're very warm. There's some historical connections between the two people.
There is a lot of historical connections, but there is one main connection also, and that's the Brits.
Well, the Brits, the British sort of project.
They don't like you, they don't like us.
Yeah. So we understand what it's like to be portrayed as terrorists, as, you know, radical nationalists and stuff. I mean, you talk about nationalism, it's hard not to talk about Ukraine and places like that, with nationalism that was aligned with fascism. I mean, we had a flirting with fascism in the 1940s, a very small group which went on to become one of the biggest political parties in Ireland, Fine Gael. And most countries had a flirting with it, but we were Republicans. It was the Irish Republican Army, which was born out of the Irish Citizen Army and the Irish Volunteers, two groups that came together, two uneasy bedfellows, basically communists and nationalists who came together to fight the British in the 1916 Revolution and then in the War of Independence, which eventually led to the Irish Republic being declared. I'm not going to give you a lesson on Irish history, put you to fucking sleep. But, but it's a similar idea, like a lot of adversity. Serbia's gone through terrible adversity. It lost a lot of people. This ethno-nationalist conflict that Serbia has found itself at the centre of, you know. Ireland was the same. We're still living it. I mean, the north of Ireland is still, some would say, occupied by the British. Some would say it's a place. I mean, it's a lot better than it was when I was a kid. Like, it was a war on there, essentially. So the war is over. People have stopped killing each other, but they haven't stopped hating each other. Yeah. So there's literal walls built between communities in the north of my country.
Take them the paychecks, 1 month or 2 months, and they're going to start. The war is going to start
again.
It'll
all kick off again. The hatred is still there. There's still not really very much mixed education, so the Catholics and the Protestants don't really mix. In certain areas, they don't go to the same bars. In the city centres, you know, you get much more pluralism, and people are sick of it. But it doesn't take much to kick this stuff off. Like when the UK left the EU, there was a time when it was looking really ropey that it all could kick off again over customs and where would you define the border. Now, most Irish Republicans think the border is the beach. We're an island. How the fuck you managed to think that this was Britain at any stage? We're a separate island.
Yeah.
Now, I know here you're surrounded by various different groups, the old Yugoslavia, different countries, the breaking up of that, the carving up of Ireland after the revolution and after the War of Independence was very brutal. They just put lines straight through the middle of farms, towns, and villages, and they just said, okay, this is now Britain. This is the Republic of Ireland. Well, it wasn't the Republic at the time; it was the Free State. So that tension where villagers are fighting, brothers against brothers, we've got that same. We were talking earlier on about this blood feud. Like the two biggest political powers in Ireland, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, came from that civil war, pro and anti-treaty. Would you sign a deal with the British? Would you, or fight on for a fully independent Ireland? Now, in the end, the deal was signed because people were sick of the fucking war. So they signed the deal, and that led to, in the end, to the war in the north, where this Protestant statelet was created by the British. It was run by the British like on an apartheid basis, basically. They had their own parliament, huge discrimination against the Irish Catholics. Scots Protestants were brought in to run the thing. Basically, this is an old thing, but it was basically completely skewed. So the civil rights movement led to the war in the North, the resurgence of the IRA, the provisional IRA, which was a guerrilla army, basically. And that kicked off in 1969. It went on until, about 30 years ago, basically. And so there's a lot of similarities. You get the same characters in people who've come out of terrible suffering and grief and killing and violence and war.
Brought to you by West, brought to you basically by those who want to integrate you into some kind of union, because there is one there is a big difference between Ireland and Serbia right now, and that's because Serbia is not a part of European Union, and as much as they are giving money to Serbian NGOs and other organizations for 25 years since Slobodan Milosevic and 5th of October, they gave billions with USAID, with other foundations, other embassies, but European Union right now has like approval rate in Serbia around 20% tops.
Yeah.
So that there is a difference. What do you think if Ireland went to referendum or some kind of elections with a question, would you like to stay in European Union? What would be the answer?
I think they'd be really worried. Recently, the most recent referendum we had was last year, and they wanted to change. The government's completely libtard in Ireland. It's so up its own ass about. We used to be a really conservative country, right? Run by the Catholic Church. We were like the Catholic SS. It was like I was educated by these guys called the Christian Brothers. It was very strict upbringing. It was a very traditional society. Nobody had sex. It was like fucking Iran, right? it was like the Roman Catholic Iran. It was a terrible place in many ways, but it also was a wonderful place, okay, as well, because it was kind of like communism in the Soviet Union. People knew that we know that they know that they know that we know. It's all bullshit, So, but when the Catholic Church collapsed in on itself really about 20 years ago, with the scandals about sexual abuse in the church, that's what happened. That's what brought down the Catholic Church in Ireland, really. Now, most people are still Catholic, but the numbers are collapsing, the churches are empty, people aren't going to church because of the Catholic dogma, which is this very dogmatic. It's not like Orthodox. It's more human, the Orthodox. I've been living in Russia. I've met lots of Orthodox priests. I've seen that religion to be much warmer in many ways, much more understanding of the human condition than the Catholic one. It's very dictatorial. The Catholic is the book. It's very like Islam in some ways, radical. It's very radical. So when that collapsed, Ireland went completely the other way. It was like this big rubber band had been pulled out and let go when the Catholic Church lost its power. Because the Catholic Church had huge influence on the state. When the Irish Constitution was written, it was written by the president, a guy called Eamon de Valera, basically, and his parliament, his government, but it also had huge influence from a guy called Charles McQuaid, who was the head archbishop in Ireland. And they basically had such an input into the constitution of the country that the Catholic Church is enshrined into the country, right? So when that all collapsed in and everyone found out that all the priests were having sex with women, or worse, there was a lot of paedophilia, huge abuse in these orphanages. Poor kids were getting sent to these terrible industrial schools. The abuse was horrific. It was like something out of a horror movie, right? When that all poured out, in the 2000s, basically, it was a huge backlash against the church, and Ireland went completely the other way. We became the centre for LGBTQ rights. We were, we everything was completely turned the other way. All right. Now, no one gives a shit if you're gay. I don't care about gay. I've got gay friends. Nobody is denying anybody the right to be who they want to be who you want to be. It's very classical Russian attitude towards it. It's very Serbian. Most Serbians say, of course you can be gay. No, it's not legal to be gay or anything like that. It's about going from being a conservative country to aggressively promoting LGBTQ stuff in our schools, in our media. And then, of course, there was huge immigration.
In culture.
So it was kind of like a shock. But a whole generation of Irish young people, Gen Z people, have grown up with this complete lack of connection to the old Ireland, which was a kind of conservative country, but it was a very creative country. Ireland's got the greatest writers. We taught the English how to use their own language, because the Gaelic language was destroyed by the British occupation. I'm talking about a British occupation being an English occupation going back to the 12th century, basically. The Irish language was illegal. It was illegal to speak it. It was illegal for an Irishman to wear a beard. It was all sorts of crazy shit over the centuries to try and crush the Irishness out of Ireland. But, of course, it failed. But the language was destroyed. They did destroy the language. Now, we still learn Irish in schools. You know, your kids will learn it. You still speak. It's still all the language on the streets is Irish and British, but people speak English.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, it's this huge reflex backlash against conservatism, and all the good stuff went out as well. They threw the baby out with the bathwater, we say in Ireland. You know, all the good things about traditional Ireland, and a lot of things about traditional Ireland was about letting people do what they want. You know, good walls make good neighbours. Whatever happens in the house next door is their business to some extent. So we don't want to pry. We don't want to know someone's gay, someone's whatever. Let them be that way. We've lost that now. It's gone the other way. It's if you aren't pro LGBTQ, and you're not you don't celebrate it. Or you don't go to the parade. Or you say fuck this parade, this gay parade. I don't want. You become right wing. You become a fascist.
But that's the thing that's happening all over Western Europe. Okay, French, they kept their French language. Germans, they kept their Nazi language. I'm sorry, but I don't like German language, man. When I travel to Germany, like I just cannot listen to it. You know, I cannot forget what they have done for 300 years here, also in other countries. But for me, Germans and British government and governments are like top two.
Well, the English are Germans, and the Germans are English. They're the same. We're all different races from them. Like the Celts, the Welsh, the Irish, the Scots. We're not Angles. They're Anglo-Saxon, Saxony and German. That's where they come from. Queen Victoria could hardly speak English. She used to speak German. She married a German, basically. So they're not English. They changed their name to Windsor when the war happened because they were like Saxe-Coburg or something. Someone will correct us, I'm sure, but it was a different German name. So they had to become more English. So they chose Windsor. It's a fake name. It's the whole thing is a fake.
So when we talk, when Serbians can choose the greatest enemy of their country, so it's like Germans, and because of English are also Germans, and they really want to control. When you look through the history, when you look to today's situation in the world, you can see right now in 2025 in March. That again, London is fueling a war.
Big time. In Ukraine, especially, like I'm living in Russia and reading a lot, and a great journalist friend of mine, Kit Klarenberg, who's based here in Belgrade. Kit did an incredible bit of work with the guys in Grey Zone, Max Blumenthal, over in the States on how MI6 is working in Ukraine. And even if they signed a peace deal, how to keep the war going, like after the end of the fall of the Third Reich, that they would leave these little commando cells. The British are actively training commando units for sabotage, assassination. They basically run the SBU, which is the Ukrainian secret police, and they've killed people across Russia. They've killed people in Ukraine. We know that there's thousands of political prisoners held in Ukraine. And the British are the energetic dynamo engine of the conflict in Ukraine, and that's everybody who knows anything in Russia, in the government, in the military, knows who's running it. They ran the operation in the Black Sea, the attacks in Crimea, all British. I mean, the operation across the Dnieper, the Krinky operation to try and land Marines, that was all run by the British directly. Complete failures, of course.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who is in charge. Everybody has the same politics. Like now Brits have Keir Starmer.
The Starmer Fuhrer.
They had Boris Johnson. They have that Indian guy.
Boris the Butcher. Who stopped the peace? Like about 3 weeks into the war, or this phase of the war, he told Zelensky, "You can't sign this thing." And I watched a video today of him admitting that Zelensky was told by Azov and Right Sector, Pravy Sector, Tornado, all the Nazis who were heavily influencing, like Svoboda, Oleg Tyanibok. These guys threatened to kill Zelensky when there could have been a peace deal in 2019. Because Zelensky was elected, remember, by a landslide, 70+% in order to end a war in Donbass, and tackle corruption. And look what he's done. The fucking war didn't end. It got a lot worse. And, corruption. We need a 3-day podcast talking about corruption in Ukraine. Yeah, and I mean, I talk to Ukrainian journalists. You have no idea the stuff that gets sent to me from people who have been hiding in their houses for 3 months, asking me to help them. I mean, this is all verified stuff. So, the British influence, I call it post-colonial delusion syndrome. Okay? The British know that they're increasingly irrelevant on a global stage. And the Big Don and Vova have shown this now by just saying, we're not even going to let you fucking halfway to the room. You're so irrelevant. All you want to do is keep the war going. Whatever you think about Trump, whatever you think about Putin, the two guys that they said were going to cause World War III are now the only two guys that are trying to stop it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
And they're being fucking punished for it in Europe. So what happened is the Big Don and Elon and the boys have said, look, we're not paying for this shit show in Ukraine anymore. So you'd expect the British, the French, the Germans, all to say, well, okay, that's great. The war's going to end. Fucking great. We thought it was the Americans were pushing the war. No, the opposite. Well, we're not stopping. How dare you try and stop our war? This is our fucking war, bro. The British are basically saying, this is our war. What they want to do is they want to destabilize Russia. Of course, we know what the big plan is to destabilize Russia.
But they're trying it so hard, so long.
Hundreds of years. They first started in Afghanistan, basically. They invaded Afghanistan because they thought the Russians were going to come. It was all bullshit.
And they gave the weapons to Taliban, fuck them up.
The Americans gave the weapons to Taliban. Yeah. And now the Taliban have more fucking Humvee Jeeps than anybody fucking else. Like, they've got all the gear. Yeah. And look, I seen a couple of Russian boys today, carrying wheelbarrow loads of javelins up the street there, having a great time. Actually, the Russian army right now officially has more javelin missiles than the British army. So, it's a shit show. But what you do in Europe is, when you're in the middle of a shit show, and actually Winston Churchill said when you're in the middle of hell, what do? You keep going. So they're kind of applying that to Ukraine. The only forward motion they have in Ukraine is escalation. So they're now saying, the Americans are soft. They've chickened out. We're going to spend $800 billion on this coming war with Russia. What coming war with Russia? You're telling us on one hand that the Russians can't beat the Ukrainians. It's taken them 3 years to get to the Dnieper. But then you're also telling us that the Russians are going to fucking invade the whole of Europe and eat your babies. Which one is it? A friend of mine, a guy called Brian MacDonald, an Irish journalist in Russia, there a long time, since 2015, he came up with this phrase called Russophrenia, which is this idea that Russia's losing and collapsing, but the other side of your brain says, Russia's coming to fucking eat my babies. They're going to barbecue my grandmother, and they're going to, nail assault to the fucking floor. It's going to be one or the other. So what is it with them? It's like Kaja Kallas, this remarkably stupid woman. I mean, she only got the job because Estonia, which is like the size of fucking Birmingham or something, it's a tiny country, right? The only reason she got that job was because of quotas in the EU, that it was Estonia's turn to get a job. She was fired by the people of Estonia. She was sacked. Her husband was making shit tons of money in Russia after the fucking invasion. Yeah. It's all bullshit. And what about Mark Rutte? He was fired by the people in Holland. I have friends in Holland say, that fucking clown, we wouldn't let him clip our dog's toenails. But he's now in charge of NATO. But what is NATO? Who's the boss of NATO? Rutte sat in the Oval Office about a week ago with the Big Don. The Big Don said, I'm gonna take Greenland. We like Greenland. We love it. It's a great place. We're taking it. We're gonna take it. Okay. And this is the boss of fucking Greenland's in NATO. Denmark is in NATO. Look, Rutte sits there. Look, nothing. And then he says, Canada is gonna be great. It's gonna be the greatest. It could be the greatest state. Canada. We love Canada. We're gonna have Canada too. So the boss of fucking NATO sitting with Trump, right? And Trump says, I'm taking fucking Canada and I'm taking Greenland. Yeah. What did Rutte say? He said, fuck all. Because he knows who the boss is. Yeah. So this shows you. Imagine that was a Russian. Like, they've no evidence that the Russians are going to... Why the fuck would the Russians want to attack Europe or NATO? Why? Yeah. If Russia wanted to attack Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, they could have taken the three of them over in an afternoon. But instead they chose to attack the biggest standing army in fucking Europe at the time, which was Ukraine. Full of Russian speakers, Russian people. Like the Russians, one thing you got to understand, like the people in the West just don't get. Russians and Ukrainians, it's very hard to know where Russia ends and Ukraine begins, if Ukraine begins at all. A lot of Russians have very sort of distinct views about this. The idea that the Russians want to destroy Ukraine is fucking crazy. Everybody in Russia has some kind of connection to Ukraine. Everybody. I actually work with actual Ukrainians.
Yeah, a lot of mixed marriages, a lot of families there. If Russia wanted to do a 3-day operation, it would have done the same thing that Israel did in Gaza.
Look, the whole everything about this thing is so fucking screwed up in the West, and they just suck it up. And the same crap. Russia's running out of missiles. Putin is dying. Putin isn't actually
10 times. He died 10 times.
Navalny is going to take over the country. Navalny never had, at the height of Navalny's popularity in Russia, he never had more than about 18% support. Never. Putin's support. I covered the elections last year, and Putin is exceptionally popular in Russia. He's just really popular. People now, even people who don't fucking like, it kind of reminds me of Serbia a bit, right?
Yeah.
Even people who don't like Putin. No, I don't like Putin, you know. And you say, well, no, but he's the fucking best man for the job right now. They're smart. They know he's the right guy to run the country. They know. They trust him. Okay? The Russian default situation in everything is skepticism. They're skeptical about everything.
Yeah.
They're skeptical about everything.
Yeah.
But they know that Putin's the best man for the job. And Putin's been proven right about almost everything he's done. You know, Putin. The only problem most Russians think that Putin made was not invading Ukraine earlier. Yeah. And Putin actually came out and said that last year. He said, I should have probably gone in 2014 when they had a shit show army. You know, because remember when the Russians went into Crimea, the invasion of Crimea, how many people died in the invasion of Crimea? I asked people in the West. Oh, thousands. They bombed children. They ate the children. 6 people died. Only 2 of them were civilians, okay? And 3 of them were pro-Russian protesters that were killed. 6 fucking people. That's some invasion, isn't it? 7,000 men from the Ukrainian army walked across the street and joined the Russian army as it came across.
Yeah, but
that's not a fucking invasion. That's a liberation, right? That's what it's called.
This is why I say always to Austrian or German liberal fascists that basically Serbs liberated Germans from Austro-Hungarian Empire, you know, with Gavrilo Princip starting the World War I. Like, you should say thank you, at least, because if they were not for Serbs, you know, Europe will be under German power today. Also, Russians fought, French fought, English fought, but
and Gavrilo Princip is a reason for a lot of this Serb fear.
Yeah.
Gavrilo Princip, you know, he shot the poor Archduke for you know, the poor man only stopped for a sandwich. What are you fucking talking about? So it's ignorance. So that's the bogeyman Serb, you see, as well. It's like the Russians. They've hated the Russians for hundreds of years, since Afghanistan, because they fear Russia. They fear Russia's mineral wealth and power. They fear Russia's resilience. I mean, look at the Second World War. People say to me, oh, the Russians are running away. They're never going to... It's really hard to talk to people in the West about the Russian ideology, how tough these people are. These people are diamond tough. Like 27 million people, 60% of that was Russians, okay? The Soviet Union. The way that the people got behind Stalin, not because of communism, but because of Mother Russia was being attacked by this terrible Nazi, beast that rolled over the borders in 1941. And the horrors that those people committed in places like Belarus, in Ukraine especially, and millions of Ukrainians died fighting them too, which is all now forgotten, right? Including Zelensky's father, or grandfather, excuse me. So, like, people just don't get it. They don't get it. You can't find anybody in Russia whose family wasn't impacted by the Second World War. You can't find anybody who doesn't refer to that war as a living part of Russian psychology and society right now. It's alive. You see kids on the metro around May the 9th wearing the caps and the badges of their grandfathers. This eternal battalion, immortal battalion. People, it lives in the metro. It lives in the fabric of the society because the sacrifice was so great. I mean, it's incalculable. Like, the numbers are so big, it's hard to even get your head around it. Like 27 million people dead. But at the same time, there's a revisionism about the Soviet Union, about who beat the Germans, you know. The British and the Americans accounted for like 3% each of the Wehrmacht's fighting power in destroying them, okay? The Russians probably destroyed about 70% of the Wehrmacht's fighting power. So how do you win a war? You destroy the enemy's army, right? Yeah. Oh, there was Lend-Lease. The Americans will come and say, Lend-Lease, Lend-Lease. Lend-Lease accounted for about 7% at the most of Russia's equipment, material, tanks, weapons, planes. So they're trying to remove Russia from history. Imagine the last commemoration
in Auschwitz.
at fucking Auschwitz.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, that's insane. So
crazy.
the guys who fucking did the killing are allowed to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, man.
The Ukrainians who fucking helped them,
Yeah.
they're there. Right?
Yeah.
The Poles are there where the fucking thing was built, by the way. I'm not giving it to the Poles for that. They were occupied. Okay?
Yeah.
So the guys who built it, for the guys who did the killing, and the guys who helped them are all there. And the fucking Russians are standing outside the gate.
Who liberated them?
Bro,
Yeah.
this
Crazy.
if that doesn't
that's
freak you out and make you
schizophrenia,
say,
yeah.
what the fuck,
Yes.
okay? It's the same. You say the name Yasinovich to somebody in Britain or America. Maybe it's people watching this now. They won't know what the fuck what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But the Serbs know what it is. And this is how the Western media and Western commentary, people like Piers Morgan, all these guys, this is how they lie. They lie by omission. We just won't talk about Yasinovich. We won't talk about the genocide against Serbs. We'll only talk about what the Serbs are supposed to have done. We won't talk about the bombing of Donbass, Donetsk, places you're familiar with for 9 years, thousands of civilians murdered, massacred. We won't talk about Tornado Battalion being sent from Lvov east to massacre, rape people, to stick, canisters of construction foam into the vaginas of young women they were raping. We won't talk about the torture in Mariupol. We won't talk about anything like that.
Destroying of churches in Kosovo and Metohija.
Let's not talk about that because that doesn't matter. Because the world history began on the 24th of February 2022 when it comes to Ukraine. Forget about OUN, UPA, Bandera, Shukevich. Forget the Americans flooding those neo-Nazi battalions with cash and money in the aftermath of the Second World War to try and destroy the Soviet Union from within Ukraine. Forget about what happened in the clearances of Serbian villages by radical Bosnians, by Albanians, the murder, the massacres. Forget all that. It only begins when you defend yourself. When you defend, and I think, and I still think, as much as I regret the wars happened and as much as I hope it ends, I still think Russia's actions in Ukraine have been defensive.
Yeah.
It was a war of self-defense, okay? Imagine if the Chinese and the Russians trained a 250,000 man army, flooded it with weapons and anti-American ideology in Mexico. Started fucking going along the border, rounding up people who are talking English.
Yeah, Chinese are...
And then they said, we're going to take fucking Texas back, which is Crimea. Let's take it back. What the fuck would the Americans have done?
Chinese are doing that with fentanyl, like it's Chinese politics, we are going to sit back, enjoy the show, and after that we're going to sell some drugs to California, go get those neoliberal transvestites, a little bit of fentanyl and shit, and it's pretty crazy. But one question, when we see, and you said like we have like big daddies, like in America, in Washington, in Moscow, the two strongest personas right now in the world, America and Russia. Where is Europe right now, and where is Europe with this kind of politics going to end?
Europe's looking for relevance. It's desperate for relevance. I mean, you're a politician. Most of them are psychopaths. Just let me tell you, Ursula von der Leyen is an exceptionally dangerous, flawed, unintelligent person in my view, okay? And because she's a woman, I'm not meant to be allowed to say that. But I don't care if she's a woman, okay? I think she's a very dangerous person. I think Europe is under far more threat from people like von der Leyen, Guy Verhofstadt, and people like Kaja Kallas, these very dangerous, ignorant Russophobes. They only know what they don't want, and they don't want Russia to have any influence. They're making shit up in Romania. They just banned the elections in Romania. I was in Georgia. I saw them try to create a colour revolution there against Georgian Dream Party. I was in the middle of it, okay? For this film I'm making, plug for the film, War in the Shadows. We'll let you share it with
great.
Which is why we were in Serbia as well. But, they've so much invested in Ukraine. Think about it. The war in Ukraine was created by the West. Maidan was a CIA operation. It got out of hand, I think, in some ways, because I think the CIA realized that it very quickly got out of hand when the people in the East went into an uprising to refuse to bend their knee to this neo-Nazi, neoliberal American pro-EU coup d'etat in Kiev, which is exactly what it was. Remember that. They overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych. Yanukovych was corrupt. It was an imperfect government. Show me a single post-Soviet government at the time that wasn't corrupt, and I'll give you a fucking birthday cake made of dog shit.
Cybertruck.
You know, come on, it's bullshit, right?
That's what I said. Excuse me. If you see a flag or in protest in Belgrade,
I saw that. Your tweet was good.
Cybertruck. Yeah. Because
so, like, I mean, they've so much invested in this. Forget about the money. It's the political capital they've invested. And think about the amount of fucking money they've put in. But the political capital. We will stand with Ukraine for 1,000 years. This type of shit. They're all reading off the same hymn sheet. Even the tweets they make now are all the same. The ball is in Russia's court. Von der Leyen says it. Rubio says it. They all fucking said, here's your tweet for today. This is a democracy, bro. This is what we're meant to be. If in the UK you put out a meme, you know, fuck Starmer, you're going to jail, bro. Yeah. You do it in Germany. My tweets were banned last week in Germany. Banned. 4 tweets I made. Banned. That is not correct. We are not allowed. You're not allowed to have this opinion.
You have to go to the prison.
Yes. And now von der Leyen is telling people, we will now pre-bunk misinformation from... What misinformation? Hunter's laptop? Fucking true. The vaccine didn't work. Fucking true.
The corruption with Pfizer and Ursula,
the Russian economy is collapsing. Bullshit. The Russian army is fighting with shovels. Yeah, and then they fucking launched the Oreshnik, the most powerful weapon on the planet right now.
They have fuel for 3 days more.
So you could write a fucking laundry list of this shit, right? So that's not disinformation. It's information. What they're trying to do is fear. They're trying to get everyone to bend their knees, follow the fucking leader, do as you're told, the blue and red flag, the fourth fucking Reich, bro. That's what's happening in Europe. And militarily, it's about sort of allowing Germany to rearm, allowing Japan to rearm. Like yesterday, the Germans said we're gonna basically rearm 800 billion. Okay, huge amounts of money in this for the German military weapons industry, for the Czechs. It's 1939, bro, again, in many ways. And the old enemies are being fucking lined up in the crosshairs. The Russians, okay? The Serbs, the Romanians, the Georgians, anybody on the periphery, anyone who's not doing us stuff, the Hungarians.
Yeah. Okay? The Slovakians, for example.
The Slovakians. I mean, they shot Fico. They probably fucking shoot Orban. And I'm going to go to Hungary very soon to continue doing this film. But if you put all this on paper, you say something is happening. I don't believe anything happens by accident. I don't believe it. I don't believe that the Americans, have pulled out of Ukraine by an accident. They knew it was coming. I mean, the Americans have an exceptionally sensitive intelligence service. Okay, if Trump says there's a lot of guys dying in Kursk, a lot of them are surrounded, they're fucking surrounded. Because Trump, so if Trump says that, the president of the United States, here's how the Western media works. President of the United States says, there's a lot of guys surrounded there, they're fucked. I've asked Vladimir to let him go. Let him go. Okay? What do they say on the fucking BBC? Look, well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't think Trump is right. Yeah. But then they say, Ukraine has lost Kursk because the Americans cut off intelligence. Who do you think gets the fucking intelligence first? The big Don. He's the president. He gets a briefing every day. They see it all. Okay? So this is the selective bullshit from the bullshit broadcasting corporation, the BBC. So when Trump says a lot of guys surrounded him there, a lot of people dying, I want to see the end of them dying, that's just Trump being a fucking idiot. He's sitting on his toilet tweeting, okay? He's not getting the same intelligence. But the intelligence, when it stopped going to Ukraine, that's why it's all collapsed. So they have to find these narratives to say, Russians can't be winning. You can't say the word win and Russia in the same sentence. You can't say a preemptive strike by the Russians in order to fuck up the Ukro scam, for a thing that's been going on since the Second World War. You have to say a totally unprovoked full-scale invasion. If it was a full-scale invasion, Ukraine would be a fucking a car park. The Russians have a lot of nuclear weapons. It wasn't a full-scale invasion. And by the way, this 3-day invasion was all bullshit too. Vladimir Putin never said it was going to take 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. He said what he was going to do. And if anything, he's continued to do it. So, lying by admission, controlling the narrative, but crushing free speech. That's what I hate people like you. That's what I hate people like me. Yeah. That's why I'm on the kill list, the Mir Tavoret's list. That's why the Ukrainian SBU sent somebody to Dublin to a meeting of the EU, the British ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador, In the EU headquarters in Dublin, they had a meeting, a public meeting on disinformation. They put a big picture of my fucking face on the wall, and they said, "This man is spreading subversive information." In my fucking country, these people come in and they're hosting.
They made a fucking kill list. You know, somebody told me when I went to Donbass, Donetsk, Mariupol, and the front lines, they told me, "Oh, Mario, you're going to end up on Ukrainian kill list. Come on, put me on your fucking kill list. I'm going to make my own kill list. You know, I'm not going. Not any Ukrainian is not going
you're
to
a
be.
Serb.
Ukrainians are not going to be safe in my country. I don't fucking care.
Yeah. Well, I saw the guy who took out the Ukrainian flag at the protest.
Yeah.
That was funny. Like, whatever, this guy must have been fucking drunk or high or something wrong with him. Like, you're looking around, right? You've got, you know, Orthodox flags. You've got Russian.
There were Russian flags.
You got Serbian flags. You got everything there. And this looked like fucking May the 9th, right? And this fucking idiot takes out a Palestinian flag and a Ukraine flag
and European Union flag. And
I
they
mean,
cried. They cried. You know.
What the fuck? It got shredded completely.
And they started crying.
Yeah. I mean literally.
So this is the question. You say, like, it looks like Europe looks like it's 1939. You know.
Yeah. But something is afoot. They need a war. They need a big fucking war because the little war they started, they're losing. Think about it. They need a bigger one. But it's like a casino. If you're betting on black and it keeps coming in fucking red, you bet more and more on black until it drops. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Because that's what they're doing now. They need a bigger war, fake war, bullshit war against Russia. Well, Russia, I don't think Russia's going to play ball.
Marko, možeš samo iz kese cigare da mi izvediš, molim te. Evo ih tu u toj kesi. Cigars. I need cigars. I'm going to cut this. Listen, hey, we are continuing. You said 1939, but there is one difference. Before we started our talk, you said you said it on the show right now, like Europe has become gay, basically. In 1939, it was not like that. They had manpower. Now, who would Europe
Nobody will fight
send
it's a joke.
to fight Russia if they were not for Ukrainians?
Yeah.
And Poles, for example, in Poland, they reject Brussels even more than Moscow right now. They reject that agenda, LGBTQ, net zero, and stuff.
Well, that's why the Poles have the biggest army. The only ones that could probably mount a kind of if you're talking about war and geostrategic reality, the only plausible land army left in Europe, if not counting the Turks.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Turks aren't going to fight Russia.
Yeah.
Fucking no way, right?
Yeah.
Russia's building fucking nuclear power stations in Turkey right now. I mean, give me a break. So that's not going to happen, right? So the only ones left standing on the field are really the Poles. They have a big military, professional,
healthy nation,
big, lot of manpower, and they're very patriotic. I mean, I have a lot of Polish friends. I love the Poles. They're great people. They have a lot of history with the Russians, right? And you know, you can't blame them. They got fucked around by the Russians a lot, and they fucked the Russians around too. If you ask the Russians, they started it. People say they invaded Moscow, you know, fucking 600 years ago. Yeah. So there's a kind of a history. There's bad blood, right? We were talking about blood. Yeah. There's bad blood between the Russians and the Poles. But, you know, things move on. They have a lot more in common. But definitely the EU would push the Poles out first. There you go, bro. In through Belarus, off you go. That won't work out very well, you know, because, you know, this has happened before, right? You know, and the last time, something that's interesting, which I put out on Twitter recently, was, you know, the last time the Europeans fucking destroyed themselves, because remember, the Europeans destroyed themselves. The Germans started the fucking war, basically, because of the bad deal they got after the First War, which the First War was an argument between the imperial families of Europe, all Queen Victoria's grandkids, the Tsar, the King of England, and the German Kaiser. They all look like the same guy, if you check this out, right? So these three motherfuckers start a big fight, okay? You started it, actually.
Yeah, we started it, yeah.
Gavrilo with the little left hand pistol,
we still have a few Gavrilos here.
So it's all your fault, right?
Yeah.
So you crazy motherfuckers started the war, right?
Yeah.
But
we lost a lot. We lost like a million.
It was terrible, huge. Men, yeah. And the fighting up in the mountains and in the First War for the Serbs was just devastating. But people are very ignorant about that. So they started that. The bad deal they gave the Germans afterwards started the Second World War. The Second World War was only, Series 2 of World War. You know, you bought Series 1, it's coming soon Series 2, because at the end of World War 1, they crippled the German economy with the Treaty of Versailles. They crippled it. You know, there was no way that it was going to come out of that vacuum, the destruction of a very proud country's economy, than, you know, something radical. And Hitler arrived into that vacuum, you know, of, you know, blaming the Jews, the stab in the back theory. And the stab in the back theory is also being now talked about in places like Ukraine, that we're being stabbed in the back by the Americans. We could have beaten the Russians. We could have pushed them over the Dnieper. So you need to blame someone when you fail. And this is bringing me back to why are the Europeans, they can now blame Trump. That madman came, we had the Russians on the ropes. You did your fuck, you did not. But it allows you to believe that you're not actually losing. Yeah. It's like your chick is cheating on you. So your mate comes and gives you the photograph, says, no, he's just a friend of hers. Oh, there's the two of them in they're in the bed. Well, that's a massage she gets every week. A slave who doesn't want to be liberated from his chains will never be liberated from it. The Europeans need a reason to sort of avoid saying we completely screwed up in Ukraine. Completely. They completely underestimated the Russians. They completely overestimated the ability of a Ukrainian state, which is exquisitely corrupt. And we knew this. I mean, go back to the US State Department's report on Ukraine in 2020-21. They said it's the most corrupt state in the world, basically. Yeah. Judiciary corrupt, police corrupt. You can buy anything, including a kidney, a kid, a new passport. And the shit that's coming out of Ukraine now, I did a little report earlier on for one of my Russian friends about pedophilia and people trafficking. Russian disinformation, all proved true. Biolabs in Ukraine, Russian disinformation. Victoria Nuland agreed it's all true. Okay, mass corruption in Ukraine. 5 million books found on the back of a Porsche Cayenne. It's just you get sick of looking at this.
They have right now the expansion of the industry. The most the industry that is most rising in Ukraine is wooden legs and prosthetics. You know, like, it's not funny, but it's like that. They said I saw it. They're selling it in malls. You know, and
coffin lids, as of cost. I tweeted a video there in the Moscow Mules, which is a show I do over there. Like this, they have a long list. Like there's a waiting list for Azov coffin lids. I mean, I fucking hate Azov, but these are human beings. This is insane. And of course, the numbers is another thing, right? How many Ukrainians are dead? 32,000. You're my ass. There's probably 200,000 people missing. Of course, they keep them missing because they don't have to pay the wages, they don't have to give the pensions. It's a huge scam.
It's corruption and war. When you mix that thing, it's hell on earth. It's hell on earth. Tell me, you're somebody who is. You told me right now into the crowd that you're doing a movie, and of course before that you also done researches and stuff. But how close are you when it comes to interference, for example, in another country politics, when it comes to non-governmental organizations? For example, let's start from USAID and the cutoff. How many of NGO neoliberal wankers are going to go selling cevapcici or hamburgers? Like, are they going to lose their jobs, or Germany is going to fill in?
Well, the take Radio Free Europe and Voice of America. I think yesterday the EU said we're going to fund it all. So they just picked up the fucking stick. So you're seeing now. What you'll see now is a rationalization. All the shit that closes down, you'll see was the wrapper for the real stuff. So while USAID was funding a core of soft power initiatives in countries like Serbia, Russia, some of them were bullshit about there was over 200 British NGOs in Serbia, right, which we've looked into. 200.
It's crazy.
Why? You know what most of them are? A lot of them are. They're fucking churches trying to convert people from Orthodox Christianity thing, because it's like, why? Some of them are to protect things like butterflies and fucking hedgehogs and snails, right? And some of them spend 20 grand a week on taxis. Really? I mean, I've fucking been around Belgrade. I don't know how you'd do that. How would you do that? So we've been looking at us. We've got some really interesting numbers. It's all going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
And, we've gone to talk to these guys, particularly in Serbia.
Where, for example?
Krik, this one, one of the biggest ones, right? We tried to talk to them, they wouldn't talk to us, which was interesting. And that tells you something.
They sent me the mail like last week. They want to talk to me.
Well.
And I was like, man, like, okay, can we meet? Can I come to your place? And they're like,
Yeah,
no, we don't have time, you know. Like
I know why they didn't want you to come to their place, and you'll see that in the movie when we make it.
Okay,
because
okay.
we turned up at their place, right? Because we found out where their registered address was. We turned up. It's a fucking underwear shop. It's like something from 1953, Prague Spring. Just old babushki's underwear.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. This is their registered address. When we were in Georgia, I very famously kind of went into the crowd and I asked these guys with this big, the BBC had on the front of mass protests in Georgia. The people have had enough. There was a big banner, I can send you a link to it, of, Georgia is not Russia. And there was 4 people stand there in front of the parliament. And this went on the front of CNN, Voice of America, BBC, front page. I went up to the guys who were holding the banner. They weren't Georgians, they were Italians. I asked them, I said, "What?" It's up on my Twitter, anyone can look at it.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And I said, "What? Where are you guys from?" They went, "No." I went, "Are you Georgian?" "No, not so much." I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, we're Italian." So these are Italians who've flown from Italy to fucking Georgia. Yeah. That's a bit of a stretch, right? Yeah. I said, "Why is your sign in English?" "Well, it's a bit of an international language." I found out who these guys were. They were Soros-funded society influencing group, okay, really radical LGBT group of boys, right? Yeah. Same with the people who were handing out NATO flags. On the way up, there was people handing out NATO flags. I mean, we taped all this. It's all going to be in the film. It's going to be really good.
Oh,
it's called War in the Shadows. And what it's about is, again, it's not about Georgia, who's right or wrong politically. And it's like Serbia. Mm-hmm. We've seen these huge protests, huge amounts of people, which is healthy in a democracy that people can come out in the street safely and do that. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing, right? And it's not, for me, I'm not a Serb, I'm not Georgian, I'm not Romanian, I'm not fucking, Ukrainian. But it's about allowing people to do their shit under their own flag without any influence. And what I'm trying to find out is who is putting money, who is looking at these big protests going, this is an opportunity for us to get what we want. Because chaos in Serbia is a good thing for the British.
Yeah, of course.
Chaos in Georgia is a good thing for the British and the Americans, because they get to put a stone in the shoe of the Russians, okay? If you guys weren't Russia's traditional, religious and historical ally, and this very close bond, nobody would know where you were. NATO would have never bombed this city. Yeah. None of it would have happened. I think Yugoslavia would have been broken up because it was too powerful. Its economy was too powerful. It was too big. And when you go down to the government offices, I did some interviews there, and you see Tito's offices and you see what Yugoslavia was. I mean, most people in the West don't get how powerful Yugoslavia was. It was a big problem for the post-empire. How do we deal with Yugoslavia? How do we deal with this Tito guy? Who is he? What's going to happen afterwards? So they just shook up the fucking hornet's nest, and then they ripped the fucking lid off and they stood back. And while they were at it, they stole a bit of Serbia and gave it to their friends and said, "That's what you get for helping us screw the pooch here." Yeah. I mean, that's what Kosovo is. It's not a real country. No issue with people from Albania, but they're Albanians. Kosovo is Serbia. It's centuries and centuries and centuries of data can tell you that. But I think what happened with Kosovo was the deep state in America and Britain and in Europe hated Serbia so much, okay, because of their traditional alliance with Russia and because of their potential to be a threat in the Balkans, right? That they gave whoever their biggest enemy was the permission to make a fake country on Serbian territory. It's very similar to what happened in Ireland. Very similar to what happened in our country. We stood up against the British Empire. We fought them to a standstill. We suffered terribly. Remember, famines. Millions of Irish people died because of their refusal to bend the knee to the English. Millions. The Cromwellian invasion, the Elizabethan invasions. We were driven out of Ulster over into Connacht. The Irish sort of royalty had to flee to Europe to fight with the Spanish, the French against the English. Wherever they could find a battle against the English, they went and joined with them, right? So we were to be punished. We were to be punished, the Irish, and I think the Serbs were always going to be punished one way or the other. I think what they did in Kosovo was a very intelligent way to do it. There's a fucking statue down there to Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
I mean, what more do you need to know, bro? That's a fucking shit show, right?
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, and Albanians are losing right now. They had their chance of winning when it comes to propaganda and stuff, spreading the lies and influencing the politics in the United States. But I think that time that is coming to an end slowly, especially because Serbs, to be exact, not the politicians, but Serbs, as we are like, the science says that Albanians have an 83.2 IQ average, while Serbs, I can just say that Nikola Tesla was a Serb. So that's the end of the story. Please tell me.
I don't know what the Irish IQ is, but I know what the Irish LGBT IQ is, because they fucking love that shit now. And when it comes to immigration and the amount of people we're letting into our country, they have no fucking IQ, Irish people. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with us. We've completely given up on our own country.
We always look to
Irish. Shit show.
We always look to Irish Serbs. We have the best bands here.
Yeah,
in Belgrade, best pubs.
Last time,
we have like really high culture, Irish culture here exposed to the public.
And it's the same in Russia. Everyone loves Irish dance, and everyone loves Ireland. And I go, Ireland fucking hates the Russians now. What? Like, I interviewed the Russian ambassador for RT before I came to Belgrade. I was in Dublin. I went and interviewed him. We were talking about this. Ireland's now an unfriendly country to Russia, for some reason. Now, most Irish people go, we don't know why that is. We don't have a fucking problem.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Russians. What? But we've been told by somebody in fucking Brussels that we suddenly hate Russia. But we don't hate fucking Russia. It's insane. We don't hate them. It's crazy. But there's propaganda by osmosis. In your car, turn on the radio. Vladimir Putin is going to come and, dip your baby in salt. And, then you watch the radio, then you go on TV, some poor Ukrainian is there, I've opened a coffee shop in an old abandoned church, all this bullshit, So you've got this real movement towards, pacifying people, It's all about sovereignty. That's what the film War in the Shadows is about. It's about sovereignty. It's about you getting to decide what you want to do in your fucking country and no one else being allowed to do it. And the EU is all about the destruction of sovereignty. Ask Orban, ask Fico, ask the Georgians.
Of course.
Who are now told, you can't come into our club. Why? Oh, because we want to know where the fucking money's coming from that you're trying to overturn our country with.
We don't want to go inside that club, but current political situation in Serbia is European Union doesn't have an alternative. Mm-hmm. That's the current stuff. We ask, there is political parties, for example, the political party of Alexander Vulin, who a lot of Russians know about, and he came with a proposal of imposing that American law about foreign agents,
and they defeated it. And I asked him about that. I interviewed him here in Belgrade, and I asked him why are you allowing these people to come in, because we were talking about it.
Yeah,
and he said we tried to introduce it and they rejected it in the parliament. That's
it,
crazy. And the law that the Americans condemned the Georgians for, and will condemn you and condemn Hungary and condemn everybody, which basically means if you're from abroad and you want to come into our country and influence our politics, remember, none of these NGOs are democratically elected, but they're coming in, sources funding them with tens of billions of dollars to come into your country to impact your democratic processes. But they're not democratically elected. And if you ask them, where's the money fucking coming from, bro? They say, how dare you get out their LGBT club, fall down and fucking, the Blue Hair Brigade come out on the streets. And whose law is it all based on? The Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is an American law that's been in place for decades. The Americans wouldn't tolerate this shit. A Chinese or a Russian dude walking around the streets giving out fucking books like about, America's a shithole. We're going to free you. The Americans wouldn't tolerate that shit. They'd beat the shit out of you.
Yeah.
No way, bro. That's not happening. But when the Georgians tried to do it, remember, I was in Georgia for this whole period.
That was crazy,
I was right there, and they failed. Your woman, Zurabashvili, she's fucking French. Zurabashvili is French. She only dropped her French citizenship to become the president of Georgia. Can you think about that? And another man that did the same, I can't think of it. There was another very similar situation between dropping citizenship in order to go and become the savior of the country. They do this type of stuff. They're selected. She was selected to come. And she said, I will not stand down. I am the legitimate president. She was told, you've got 24 hours to get out, and she fucked off. Same in Belarus. It's like a roulette wheel. They spin the wheel, and they see where they can get the water in. It's a machine. And it's about picking apart, anybody who dares to sort of refuse to bend the knee. Anybody who wants to do business with China, anyone who wants to do business with Russia, anyone who has a historical relationship with them. Like, I'm going to be interviewing the Hungarian Foreign Minister, Peter Szijjártó. A very interesting guy. I'm going to be interviewing him.
Who speaks perfect Serbian.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example.
yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
So I'm going to talk to him about this. So the film is about stitching together all those pieces, but also we've done a huge amount of research, and the numbers we've come up with are just incredible. The European Union has spent 150 billion euros of EU taxpayers' money since the year 2000 to influence, and all they will tell you is to influence society, whatever that means: advertising, politics, payments, grants. USAID was paying for LGBTQ operas in Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay, who came up with that idea? In Ireland, you'll often see now schools with the gay flag, with the EU flag, no Irish flag, because the Irish flag has become a symbol of the right or radicalism, radical nationalism. You're meant to be ashamed of your flag. It's become something. I put up a tweet about it saying, it's now, controversial to fly your fucking national flag. Okay. Now, when the war was on in the north, flying the flag was seen as a Republican thing, anti-British, blah blah blah. I have no problem with that. And but now it's become representative of being against immigration, mass immigration into Ireland. We've no housing to give these people. We've no housing to take these immigrants into. We've no fabric in our society, in medical care, in anything to take more people. And by the way, Ireland's meant to be a neutral country. We're not in NATO. What the fuck are we sweeping up the butcher shop floor for NATO countries, taking huge amounts of people from the war in Ukraine? Nearly 200,000 Ukrainians are in my country. A country of 6 million people. Why are we taking so many people? Because we're not in this war machine. We're not part of it, apparently. But we're a fucking soft touch. And you know what? We've got no sovereignty left because we're in the EU. And that's a warning for the Serbs.
Yeah.
The EU owns you.
Yeah.
You get nothing for nothing. They might fix your fucking roads. There might be no cracks in the pavement anymore. The graffiti gets cleaned up. It's all fucking great. You get a big gay parade, but you also owe them. And when we had a financial crisis in 2008 in Ireland, because we were a young republic, and we fucking screwed the pooch. We went mental. We got it so wrong. We had a huge our financial collapse. The EU came to town and basically put a gun to the head of our finance minister and said, listen, asshole, you're going to socialise 68 billion or 65 billion of debt into the population. You're going to crush them with taxes for the next 10 years. It was austerity. Crazy. Or we're going to withdraw financial support. We're going to call in the loans that you have with the ECB. We're going to destroy your economy. And that was what happened in our country. And it was the EU that did it. Then they sent a troika to manage our affairs, to manage our way. And they got a little tap on the back after crippling the country. Massive taxes. And we're still paying taxes like universal social charge to pay back this debt to the EU for saving us from ourselves. It's just typical gaslighting, okay?
Yeah.
The EU needs to become what it's set out to be, which was an economic union. Free trade, free, unification of different tariffs and barriers so that we can trade together. That's what it's the EEC, the European Economic Community. The EU is a nation building operation. It's the political wing of fucking NATO. That's all it is.
You have to be in NATO first to join the European Union.
We're not in NATO, but there's huge pressure on Ireland to join NATO. Huge pressure. From within, from these academics, these assholes.
So you still have some kind of sovereignty, like you still have some independence.
Well, we're told that we can't say no to the Ukrainians coming to our country. Like there's like 1,000 Ukrainians a week, or someone told me.
They still keep coming, yeah.
They still keep coming because there's Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups saying, "Oh, Ireland's great. Come on, you get what you like." Ireland's a fucking island out in the North Atlantic, basically. You got to cross a lot of countries to get to fucking Ireland.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's expensive.
You know what I mean?
It costs a lot.
So if you go across the Polish border from Western Ukraine, you're not in Ireland, bro. You got to get in your car and drive a long way. Same with all the people from Sub-Saharan Africa. We got huge amounts of young single men coming from Syria, Georgia, Palestine, Jordan. Huge, thousands and thousands of them. It's spiraling out of control.
Yeah, I saw that.
And we've got no fucking plan.
Also, people are going on the streets protesting in Ireland. I saw some camps for migrants burn.
The whole city centre is in shit. Now, here's something as well, which you have to say when you talk about immigration. Ireland were great emigrants. We went across the world.
Yeah.
We were starved out of our own country. The British, committed terrible atrocities in our country, which made us a crippled state. When we finally got freedom from the British, there was an economic war between Ireland and Britain. We were tiny. We had terrible poverty, terrible societal problems. So millions of Irish people from the famine in 1845 to 1850 probably millions of people left Ireland. They were starved out of the country. And while the famine, the potato famine went on, which people say, oh, it was a famine, it was terrible. While that famine went on, the British exported more oats, honey, milk and flour out of Ireland than in the previous 3 years. This was a genocide. It was engineered to try and clear as many Irish out while big British landlords took the land. We know what it was. But we were great immigrants. We went across the world. We went to the United States. We went to the UK. We went to Britain.
Yeah, Irish basically
Canada
created the United States as there is, of course.
I mean, the Irish and the Italians, probably were the two biggest immigrant. I have no problem with immigration. It ain't where you're from; it's where you are. I don't care if you're black, white,
but you should
Jew,
integrate,
Catholic, Protestant, no religion. If you walk around long enough with your trousers around your ankles, it's a matter of time before someone sticks their finger up your ass.
But we have an immigration here.
It's the same fucking problem. We need a. When I go to Russia, I gotta have a place to work, place to live.
Yeah.
I gotta get a chest X-ray twice a year. Yeah. I gotta get tested for HIV.
Yeah.
Right. All these things. That's completely normal. I don't mind doing it. I've got a job. I pay my taxes. If I don't have any of that shit, I can't come to Russia. Try going to Canada to live, or New Zealand or Australia. We are so terrified in Ireland to say, sorry, bro, at the border. You can't come in here. Fuck off. You can't. Because, number one, we don't have the ability to look after you. We can't look after our own citizens and taxpayers. And we're completely devaluing our citizenship. Our citizenship means nothing. If all you have to do in Ireland is stay there for 3 years and someone gives you a passport. If I lived in Ukraine, which was one of the most corrupt, crippled economies in Europe for decades, and I got a chance to go to Ireland because of the war, I'd be on the fucking plane with my kids and my wife. Yeah. Sure, of course I fucking would. It's a chance to get into the EU. And the EU has created this idea that it's some sort of fantasy world. It's a garden, right? It's not a garden, it's a shithole. Go and walk around Brussels if you're brave enough. If you get some body armour and a pistol.
That's crazy.
Walk around the centre of Brussels. Yeah. Walk around the centre of Paris. Walk around the city centre in Dublin.
You can lose your organs.
It's a shithole. And London is the same. These are very dangerous places now, and there's no plan. Nobody seems to know. All the libtards are saying, we have to keep everybody in. There was an Irish NGO, which we looked at for this film, who's taking money from the government, okay, for immigration integration, okay, and then taking court cases against the government in the courts to stop them deporting people who are criminals.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, what?
But
can you imagine? Yeah. There are thousands of NGOs in our country. We're spending tens of millions of euros on building fucking solar-powered water purification systems in deepest Africa, okay? And there's people living on the streets of Dublin, shitting in tents. Now, a country that thinks that's okay, there's something wrong. And of course, I'm now painted as he's far right. No, I'm not far right. I'm anything but far right. Yeah. I know my politics, very much so. There's nothing I abhor more than fascism and Nazism. I'm a devout anti-fascist. And in the true term of being anti-fascist, it doesn't mean you got to be gay, wave a Palestinian flag and have blue hair. Anybody who understands the history of where fascism comes from knows that it starts with destroying societies and people feeling so disembodied and disenfranchised that they become radicalized. And that's what we're doing in Europe. We're creating these huge vacuums which young people are coming out on the streets and going, there's nobody here. My language is gone. My people are gone. Everything is gone. It's very dangerous. And this has been created by the EU because the EU wants a disorganized far right in Europe. They want it disorganized. They want people to hate themselves. They want people to say, people like me who say, we should be proud of our flag. We should try to save our country. And it's about sovereignty. Always comes back to sovereignty with the EU. That's why they want to destroy sovereignty. Because as soon as you lose control of your sovereignty, you can only do it once. You lose it once, it's almost impossible to ever get it back. You only have it once. Imagine how hard the Serbs fought, the Irish fought, the French, the Italians for their sovereignty, for the idea. And sovereignty means just that, the sovereign rules, that the people control the destiny of a country. The blood, sweat, tears, famine, war that we went through for this. And we're going to fucking hand it now to some fucking female Führer in the Fourth Reich, Ursula von der Leyen, who wasn't elected by anybody, essentially. Elected by a bunch of suits in one of the most corrupt parliaments that there is. I didn't vote for her to become the head of the EU. I didn't vote for Mark Rutte to become a NATO. I didn't vote to send weapons to Ukraine to kill Slavic people murdering each other for some twisted sick scenario to try and upset the Russians. We never got to ask that question. And they're meant to be about democracy. They destroyed democracy in Romania. They stopped the Georgians joining because they activated democracy to stop a colour revolution. They're doing the same in Hungary. They're doing the same in Slovakia. And anyone who thinks what's happening in Serbia isn't being manipulated by foreign powers, whether you agree or disagree with the protests here, it doesn't matter. I'm not interested in who's right or wrong.
Of course, that there is.
I'm worried that
somebody
is going. Here we go.
Yeah.
And they're going to get it. You know, students would go and fucking protest if you said Santa Claus has been kidnapped by the Easter Bunny, and the students are young. They're passionate. I'm not saying they're stupid or what they're doing is absolutely not. Student movements are very good, and I support them in the right to protest, but it's easy to manipulate them. We've been told a lot of academics and professors in the universities are putting pressure on students. We've been told that here by students, being pressurized. If you're not at the protest, you're not at the races.
You think that they're going to be rejected from the student
well,
society?
Look, it's a mass movement.
There is one thing, Šej, that maybe the public should know, and that's logic. Of course, that in any country where there are protests, some MI6 guys are going to try
for sure
to manipulate it and make it to civil war. Some country, it happened already in the past in Yugoslavia and other countries. But one thing is for sure, and the public should know, that this government rejected the Foreign Agent Registration Bill, FARA Act. This government rejected it. Mm-hmm. This government said that European Union doesn't have any alternative. This government welcomes Alex Soros once a month. So that's the problem with patriots here when they look at it and they see but how can somebody be influenced by West when West is supporting the current government? It's totally different than in Hungary when you have Viktor Orban, who is really tough when it comes to NGOs, and he should be even tougher. Everybody here will support the politics that we see in Hungary are implemented, or in Georgia, but that is not happening.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Somebody wants to make us gay. Somebody wants to make us like in European Union. So basically, that's the only problem that patriots have here. And you didn't see any EU flag. You saw?
No, I saw nothing like that. No, nothing at all. And interestingly, what I did see was that the Serbs, everybody on either side of the discussion. At first, there was no violence, which was great. I mean, it was really relieving to see it, because we were told, everyone was thinking, my God, something's going to happen. It was great to see that amount of people could come, respect their city, respect each other. This was a real message too, that there wasn't any violence. This was really positive, I think. But also, from my point of view, right, as I'm not a Serb, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't get a vote really. So while we were here, and it just so happened we were here during the protest, what I'm interested in is sovereignty. And that's what I'm interested in Ireland. I don't care if we screw up in Ireland once we do it under our own flag. Yeah. Because I'm really scared about what happens when this United States of Europe, this European army happens. What happens then? What happens to our culture 1,000 years old? What happens to the Serbian culture? What happens to, Romanian, Moldovan? What happens to all these great stories? They just get lost in this beige uniformity, which really worries me. Because if you look at the history of great empires, once they suck in a story and create something new, the only story is that story, and everything moves on from there. So that's my concern.
We just need to stop the integration into European Union and everything. It would be cool. Or if government officials said, look, these guys from this country, this embassy, bye-bye. Ciao, as Italians will say. You're messing up, manipulating our people. Okay, deport them. Close the embassy. Why is that so hard?
I think as well as Serbia is unique for another reason. Serbia is kind of surrounded geographically, right? It doesn't have any natural allies on its borders, right? It's cut off from its big ally, Russia, right now. It can't take you know, any kind of material assistance from Russia. That's a problem for Serbia.
Yeah.
And I think ideologically it's surrounded as well. And it's got Hungary, it's got Slovakia. There are friends out there. But everybody's got to wonder, how do we pay the bills? How do we trade? How do we stop our currency being attacked? How do we stop everything? So it's easy to say, oh, we should throw out the fucking ambassador of this, that, and the other and stuff. It's easy to say, and I would 100% be the first one down there to try and to agree with you. But this is a sort of view which is easy for us sitting here. It's harder when you're in power. Whoever's in power in Serbia, whoever's in power in Hungary, they have to walk a fine line between becoming anointed for destruction or becoming harder to pin down. So I understand that. But my view on the European Union has gone, in the last 2 years, seeing what they've done and how they're trying to undermine sovereignty, okay, really frightens me. And I am totally now against the European Union as regards a political nation-building organisation. Economic union, absolutely. Even the euro, maybe, absolutely. Freedom of movement for EU citizens, yes. For non-EU citizens, no. I think you've got to draw the line somewhere. What Europe has become is a tool of political manipulation and control, and NATO has become its enforcer. It's its security company. Okay, and nobody knows how the defensive alliance can act when it's pissed off better than you guys do here. What they did here, the murdering hundreds of people, you know, destroying a country at the center of Europe. It's insane. No UN mandate, completely illegal, killing people still dying. The economy's still suffering here. I mean, walk around the streets here and it's always in your mind that they actually did this. They fucking did this. They did to Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq as well. But Serbia is a country and a culture at the heart of our continent. And the fact that the EU's military arm, which is NATO, allowed that to happen, tells me all I need to know if I'm a Serb. And this is my personal view. But the reason we came here again was to find out who wants to and why would they want to spend so much money in a small country. And I just think it's because, you know, obviously if you weren't Russia's natural ally and historical ally, I don't think they would.
Color revolution in Serbia didn't stop since 2000, since 5th of October in 2000. It started there. Yeah, it's still ongoing.
No, of course.
Why? Because you have Serbian government that is funding those NGOs that are suing also Serbian state. For example, like you have in Ireland, it's
yeah.
It's
look,
crazy.
I mean, I think. Look, you have to ask yourself at some stage. You can incur the wrath of these NGOs. You can incur the wrath of their masters. Of course, these NGOs are, of course, cutouts for bigger forces.
Of course,
you know that, right? Of course, everybody, the dogs in the street knows that.
Yeah.
So it's a really difficult. I wouldn't want to be the president of Serbia or the president of Ireland for a minute. Because you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
I agree with you.
And that's the nature of politics, the nature of a good politician. And whatever you think about Mr. Vučić, and lots of people here have opinions, of course. I'm not going to get into it because it's not my place to get into it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about it has been people who are against Vučić and pro-Vučić, the people who are against him, they say, well, if you try to fuck him over or you try to take him out in a colour revolution, we'd be the first people down defending because this is the Serbian way, which is remarkable.
If Serbs saw the flags that we saw in Georgia, I will be the first. To protect my country,
right? It's remarkable, isn't it?
But there is no. You saw what happened with the guy.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. It was a really interesting thing. But the energy at the protest also was on the Friday night. Saturday was to be the big day. The energy was very much a carnival. People were out. They were having, people riding. It was very positive. There was no threat.
You couldn't.
I've been in the middle of these things when there is threat. I was in
Tbilisi,
Freedom Square in Tbilisi. I walked in. I saw Georgian Legion. I saw Ukrainian Nazis. I saw all sorts of really malign forces there. So, as I described it here, when I did my news reports, I said this is a Serbian argument among Serbs, and there'll be a Serbian solution to it. And that's, for me, is healthy. That the Serbs should be allowed to fix their problems as they perceive them to be under their own flag in their own country. And what we're trying to do in the War in the Shadows is to find out who wants to stop that happening. Because it's the most anti-democratic sort of manifestation of being anti-democratic is pouring money in a very undemocratic way into a democracy to completely screw the table, the balance of power. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. And remember, the EU is supporting a dictatorship in Ukraine. Zelensky was elected in 2019.
Of course.
He's not,
regular. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kalin Georgescu was banned from running the election because he won it. They've also banned another female lawmaker there who was, thought she was pro-Russian. All you need to do to be pro-Russian right now is to defend Serbia, want the war to end in Ukraine,
call for peace,
and want sovereignty. Because sovereignty is a dirty word in Europe now. Russia, you'd be better off being a paedophile than being a Russian supporter.
It's crazy.
Right? And I've said this publicly. Because at least a paedophile, they'll send you for treatment and they'll give you a nice cozy cell and they'll look after you. Some NGO will fucking give the money for it.
Yeah.
You be pro-Russian, you're just an animal.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's multiple very powerful forces out there who see any kind of gap anywhere in any society in Europe, and they will pour the money and the influence in there to make sure chaos ensues. I'm sure there's nothing they want more than Serbia to consume itself in chaos. It solves the Republika Srpska problem. It solves the Kosovo problem. If it all falls apart here, they'll reinstall some sort of government by committee, and all the expat Serbs who, like they want to do in Russia, all these fucking Gary Kasparov and all his gay friends will turn up in Moscow, carve up Russia, give all the fucking mineral. Well, you saw how important minerals are. Trump straight in for the minerals in Ukraine. Yeah. That's what they want to destroy. Serbia has a lot of lithium.
And the European Union wants it.
Think about it. So it's not that hard. If you zoom out and you say, what the fuck's going on? If you zoom out and just look at the map, it's very simple. They want to tear your country apart. They want what you've got. They don't want to pay for it. And they want to solve two problems at once. They want to destroy Serbian nationalism. They want to destroy the idea of a powerful Serb, the idea of Serbia. And they've done it in Ireland. They've already destroyed they've convinced most people in Ireland to be ashamed of themselves. And that's where it begins. They've convinced most of my
They tried it here for so long. They tried it here for so long, gave so much money, but it just happened. Something different happened. A lot of young people who were born after the 2000, after 5th of October, they become nationalists. They become proud Serbians.
Look, I was out last night, St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Being an Irishman, I had to go out and have 2 pints of Guinness.
Yeah.
2.
Just.
So I had 2 pints of Guinness and I met the greatest young people. Just super clued in, super, energetic about their history. And when they heard me talking about my views and stuff, and it was just wonderful. I had a wonderful night. Lovely people. And that's why Serbia is a harder nut to crack, because people are smarter. It's like Russia. Most Russians understand their history. Most Europeans have been given their history by somebody. Yeah. That's the problem. They're writing the school books. They're telling you that your kid, that there's 13 fucking genders. They're telling you, if the state can tell you that you can be a man on Monday and a woman on Tuesday, what else can I tell you? I mean, it's fucking insane.
It's crazy. Hey, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I know you have your schedule. One thing that also is showing the connection between Serbs and Irish is that there, once upon a time, 50 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, there was a Serbian who led the Irish mafia in Boston. It was Boško Rajković.
It was like Whitey Bulger's mate.
Yeah. So like, two of our nations can and will live together also with all normal people in Europe and in the world. You showed me and you gave me your time, and I'm really thankful for it. Next time we will have more time. We will do it online. We have a lot of topics from Russian immigrants here in Belgrade. That's really interesting. And I know that you are also researching on that topic. So thanks, Šej. Thanks.
Super. Been a pleasure. Always great to see
you. You heard it, guys. Šej Bous in bunker in Belgrade. We talked about everything that you need to know, but you cannot find on any media. So subscribe, share, follow, do what the heck you want. But like, watch it like 2 times minimum. Have a good night or good day, depends from where you are watching. My name is Mario Zna, and I'm off.